Explore Muskoka Girl, and today we're releasing the baby turtle.
So right here we have the baby turtles that hatched out of the eggs that were taken from this exact spot. So what we're going to do is to recreate their natural conditions, release them as close as possible to their nest.
They're literally just kind of hanging around like, hey, can we come back?
The water's probably a little bit cooler than what's inside their container, so it's probably a little bit of a shock to them, which is why it takes them a few seconds to try to figure out, wait, what just happened?
And 24. Perfect.
And so how long will they just kind of hang out there? Oh, look, he's still looking like hello.
It really honestly depends on the individual. Sometimes they'll stay there for multiple hours. Other times, like as soon as you put them under the water, they'll go right away. So it kind of depends.
And then one thing that you guys can actually do is actually toss the eggshells, because we're just going to put the eggshells back into their natural environment. Sometimes like for calcium reasons and things like that.
Oh, that makes sense.
But we're going to toss them away from the babies so
they don't try to crawl back in?
Yeah, the smell of where these
It's more so when predators find the eggshells, they
Gotcha.
think, ooh, there might be a good snack
Yes.
around here.
Yeah.
So we try to dissuade that by putting the eggshells as far away from the babies as we
can toss those eggshells. So yeah, just take, you can toss them just like off kind of where the pole is maybe. Just toss them into the wetland and stuff.
Now, do the eggs get bigger as the turtle grows inside? Like, will the egg expand a bit?
No, the eggs stay about the same
They stay the same,
size.
okay.
And then the babies get bigger though.
Yeah.
So the eggs will essentially get heavier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they do absorb a lot of water, and as the baby grows, it kind of is able to absorb water within the egg, and so it doesn't grow in circumference or diameter though, it stays pretty much the same size. Now, across individuals, across females, you can actually get some really small eggs and then some really big eggs, so that varies a lot, but it won't change as they're incubating.
Gotcha.
At least from what we found anyways.
Yeah.
Watching you, and we read something that said cooler climates make female turtles, and the warmer the climate, the more male.
Cool chicks and hot dudes?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So for sea turtles, that's absolutely the case. Depends on the species with specific temperatures, but absolutely. Now with our turtles, it's a little bit different where I find that females are more made on the extremities, so really warm and really cool, and the males are kind of made in the middle, but that varies a lot in Ontario based on species. And two of our species in Ontario actually don't, they actually have sex chromosomes, so instead of the temperature making their sex, they actually already know their gender, just like people do. Yep.
I also read that that the male turtles have like an indent in their shell, and the females are just flat. Is that true?
Yeah, so again, some species for sure have that. The way I like to think about it is if the turtles themselves have a really nice high domed shell or domed carapace, and they kind of have to fit like puzzle pieces. So if that female has a nice high domed shell, then the male has to have that kind of indent in their belly to be able to fit on top. But a painted turtle, for example, that has a really flat shell, the male doesn't need to have a concave or a curved belly, so they don't. So it's kind of dependent on the species itself. So blandings would be a good example of where the male has a nice big bowl belly. Snapping turtles are actually really hard to tell, male from female. Even just looking at a snapping turtle, you can't really tell, especially at this size, we have no idea. And especially because we do incubate them, where we get an equal amount of males and females. So honestly, I have no idea what we just released, the sex-wise anyways. But for adult turtles, sometimes you can tell, like if she's laying eggs, then you know she's a female. If they have a really thick, long tail, then usually that means a male. But with snapping turtles, it's really hard to tell. And even my field technicians, who I've trained for multiple weeks and have been out in the wetland, they have a hard time determining male from female snappers.
Need to see a male and a female to see a difference.
Yeah, and even still, there's lots of variation of males. Some males will have longer tails, but they'll be a little bit thinner, or some males will have shorter tails and they'll be thicker. And it's very confusing.
So did you mark the ones you released?
We don't, unfortunately. There's a couple of reasons why we don't do so. One of which is because it's very unlikely that we're going to find any of these individuals again. So to put all the effort into marking them and then basically not finding them again is pretty low. The other reason is because a lot of the time they actually get eaten. So in Algonquin Park there was a recent study, or not recent, but there was a study done, and it does suggest that for one female or for one adult to be made into the population, that lady needs to lay 1,400 eggs. So 1,400 eggs to one adult turtle. Wow. So these 24 that we released, their likelihood is not really that great, but it's better than if we were to just leave them in the ground as eggs, because that's an even higher chance of being eaten and stuff, because everything eats turtle eggs.
So do you keep any to let them grow bigger and stronger before you release, or they all get released?
Yeah, so we currently don't have any plans right now. That's actually a scientific method called head starting. So where we will keep them for a couple of years of their life, kind of get them nice and big, basically non-predator mouse size, if you will,
yeah.
And then we release them back into the wild. We currently don't have any plans to do that. We are waiting on some permits to do that with some Blandings turtles, but we don't have the permissions yet, so that's not currently what we do. It does take a lot of resources, so it takes a lot of care for the animals themselves. It takes a lot of staffing to make sure that we can care for those animals.
Tank cleaning and feeding. And
exactly. So that's a big thing that you really, as a project, kind of have to think about. Do we have the resources to do this? And right now we've just decided to give them that one leg, or that second leg up, you know, from egg to hatchling, and then kind of go from there instead of keeping all of these.
I heard they had a yolk pouch on their stomach. How do these happen?
So what happens sometimes with our hatchling turtles is when they come out of their eggs, sometimes they will have this big yolk sac, is what we call it. It's kind of right where you would picture your belly button to be. And so most of the time when the turtles themselves come out, they come out when it's all absorbed. But sometimes, if all their brothers and sisters have been moving around, that turtle thinks, oh, it's time to hatch, and they hatch almost too early in a sense, and they will have this nice big yolk sac. Now what's cool is that all of the turtles will tend to stay in the nest until that, or hopefully until that one turtle has absorbed the yolk sac, because they don't really want to go swimming out in nature with this giant yolk sac. It does, you know, it kind of makes them a little bit unsteady. They can't move very well. They can't run away from predators, things like that. So
I heard that they can last a week just feeding off their yolk.
Yeah, a week or two. It depends on
so they
the species.
absorb it. They don't eat it.
Nope. It all goes. It's kind of
how do they reach their stomachs?
Yeah. What I think of the yolk sac is kind of like a placenta in human. So they get all that nutrients and they get all that good stuff, and it actually can sustain them for a week or two, depending on the species and how big their yolk sac is. But they don't need to eat for like at least the first week of their life, because they have all that food and that nutrients in the yolk sac itself.
And then what would they eat? Because we've seen people with pet turtles, they feed their turtles like worms and stuff. But would a worm really just fall right in?
Not necessarily, but if you think of things like mosquito larvae or other small insects and bugs, that's what really our hatchlings are eating. We do find that our hatchling turtles eat a lot more protein or meat than compared to our adult turtles. So as they age, they'll start to eat more and more vegetation. But they do try to bulk up, if you will, and try to get as big, as quick as they possibly can.
Would they eat like those water bugs on top?
Yeah, they could, if they could catch them. That's the other thing, right? You gotta kind of go for a slow insect, because they're not terribly quick yet.
Well, there's lots of slimy, eggy kind of things in the water that we see all the time. So I guess now we know who eats it.
Yeah, a whole bunch of like larvae and.
Would they eat like the algae stuff?
You know what? I'm not sure. Not a whole lot of research that I know of has actually gone into wild hatchling food, so it's possible that they eat the algae. I'm not really sure.
They should just strap a little, GoPro on their shells or something, so they can learn more. Kale, hop in there and live with the turtles. We'll come back in a month.
Sounds good. You tell me how they're doing. You still see anybody?
I thought it was cute because when they first came out of the dirt, it was like they were standing up.
Yeah, they kind of put their feet up and stretch out, look around.
I saw one a second ago.
Yeah.
But
there's definitely they've all kind of buried down into the mud, it looks like.
Which is fantastic. Yes. We actually, when we put them into the water, we want their first instinct to be run away and hide. right? That's a really good natural instinct for them to have.
I saw 3 of them come out of the dirt already, and then when you put them in, I saw 2 just kind of sit there, and one actually got set on top of another.
Yep.
They did look confused, but yeah, they're all gone now.
They're very instinctual animals, so they know where they need to go, that they need to hide, things like that. So we don't have to teach them anything or worry about them, learning certain behaviors, especially because we keep them for such a short period of time of their whole life.
Well, they're over their abandonment issues already.
Yep. More abandonment issues, I think, from our side of things, being sad that we have to release them, but at the same time, we're so hopeful that they're going to grow up and be nice big turtles and be healthy in the environment.
So we've been watching some spots where we know there's nests, and they're not hatching yet. So are they slower to hatch out here versus your steady temperatures?
Absolutely. So in our incubator, we do incubate at 28 degrees, so that typically gives both male and females, at least for the species that we incubate for. And we actually don't dip our temperatures in the evening time.
Right. So you
So
never get that
28
controlled out here.
All the time.
Gotcha.
And that's one thing is that we've been considering is potentially lowering the temperature a little bit in the evenings. There's not a lot of research when it comes to captive incubation, at least of our native species. So it's kind of a little bit, you see how it works, see if it doesn't,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So it's a little
And
bit
the only
trial
way
and
you could
error.
regulate it to keep it the same as outdoors is to actually have thermometers stuck in the dirt at the right depth, and then work with that.
Absolutely. And that's tricky with our project in particular because it's so vast in area.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
We incubate down in Aurelia, and we come all the way up, way farther than here. So it's quite challenging.
Much colder
to be
at
able
night.
to,
Yeah.
specifically manipulate potentially each nest in the temperature that it needs. So
And
it
yeah.
is naturally at. So we do find, and other projects in Ontario do find that as well, that our captive eggs do tend to hatch a little bit earlier than some of our others.
Yeah, and these ones were laid, I looked at the date, June 25th.
Yeah.
So I think the ones you're talking about probably a few days.
A week later or
after,
so,
yeah.
but we're watching. But I mean, we've had some really, really cold nights. Like
Yeah,
it's
and
gone
it's
down to
getting a
9,
little
and
bit cooler, so it wouldn't surprise me
throughout
if
all
our-
of August it's
Yeah,
gotten cold
yeah.
at night.
It wouldn't surprise me if our wild eggs would still take a week or 2 or even 3. Sometimes they're like really delayed, especially with how you were saying the evening temperatures in August being so cool. Yeah,
Well, we'll
so
keep
usually
watching.
say between 60 and 90 days, so they can, especially if it's cooler season, they can take all the way up to 3 months. But it kind of depends, like all on that temperature, like how fast are the eggs cooking to be able to have those babies ready for release or for escape from their nest cavity. And painted turtles are cool as well because they will actually overwinter in their nest cavity.
I've heard that before, yeah.
So if they find that it's not suitable conditions, if it's maybe a little bit too cool and they can't find an appropriate hibernation site, or whatever the reason is that they choose to not come out of the nest, they can stay in there all over winter and then come out the following spring.
So does that mean they're hatched, but they're just not digging
Yep.
up? They're just staying
Yep, they're
dormant?
just as hatchlings in the
Okay.
nest itself.
Now when they're in the incubator, do you ever like move the soil around a bit just to find the eggs and see if they hatch?
So our eggs are not covered in soil, so they're in the Tupperware container that we release the hatchlings from, but we do make sure that we can see all of the eggs. Sometimes the eggs will become moldy, for example, or other things, and we do like to make sure that we know when they're starting to hatch. We call it pipping, so when you can see the little tip of their nose outside of the egg, you can kind of know that that's when the nest is going to start to hatch. The eggs will also get fairly sweaty as well before they start to hatch, and so those are really good indicators. So we do like to make sure that we have full visual on the eggs. They are nestled in vermiculite, which is like a soil additive, but we do make sure that we can see each and every individual egg.
And
we're
once,
lucky.
once they start, how long does that take for them to get right out of the egg?
And
Or
honestly,
it varies?
It varies. It varies a lot. Some individuals are very determined and get out very quickly, and then others take their time and look around and then take a pause. It can take them quite a long time.
So just
It
like
really is
childbirth.
dependent on, yeah.